I would say like being in high school and stuff is when I noticed too, like the way teachers treated me different from other classmates. Everything I did was suspicious activity, you know, like I'm like, I'm doing the same thing. That's how we passing the same notes, but I'm the problem. So that like it's in my, I guess my teenhood, my adolescence, and my adulthood when I started noticing like people are treating me different. Queen. I am the founder of Mixed Vixen. If you are new here, hey boo. And if you are not new here, thanks for coming through. I appreciate you. So if you saw the title of this video, you know that today we are talking about colorism. I do have lots of conversations about colorism, but I wanted to bring other people and have a community conversation because I think a lot of the conversations about colorism fall flat. They are very straight. They're very cis het. And for some reason, people think light-skinned people should be in a conversation, and it's weird. I would like to introduce you to the panelists who are joining me today.
Hi, I am Akua, pronouns she and her. I don't even know how to introduce myself anymore.
Okay.
I am a Black woman, a dark-skinned Black woman in America. I am a licensed mental health counselor and a former podcaster.
Hello, my name is Bryanna. I also go by Aeon. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am a Black trans woman, also dark skinned, also fat, also queer, a little bit about what I do. For work, I am an attorney, a civil rights attorney. I also am a podcaster. I have my own podcast called Girl Down Podcast, where I have talked about colorism in the past and how it's impacted my life. So I'm happy to be here in this space.
Thank you so much for joining me for this conversation. I want to start with, just the basics. Sometimes there's one-on-one people in a room. I wanted to just start with what were some of your personal experience with colorism in your childhood, and then move on to some of the experiences you had in your adulthood with colorism.
Oh, childhood. So one that stands out to me is bleaching of the skin is very popular in my culture. My parents are from Ghana, West Africa. My mother also bleaches, and I think I had to been about like 9 or 10, and she gave me this cream to start using on my face. And you're a 10-year-old, you're like, all right, my mom said put this on my face, put this on my face. But I started noticing that different parts of my face was starting to, what I thought was discolor was starting to get lighter than others, and it kind of clicked. I was like, oh, this is lightening cream. And I just stopped using it. I was like, I don't want to use it. It was never anything we talked about. It was never anything said, but knowing, her history with bleaching and kind of having that, I was just like, oh, there's this grooming of me to be more acceptable or grow in this way and look this way. In the summer, people will tell me, oh, I can't be in the sun too long, I'm going to get dark. And I did get darker when I was, during the summer, especially I'll go to Ghana, but like, I was still cute. But it was like, oh, you need to wear a hat. You need to carry an umbrella. You need to be in the shade. Of course, kids calling me purple, telling me I'm dark in whatever creative way they can think of. In adulthood, I would have to think more on adulthood because I don't think I notice it anymore. It's so insidious that I don't think, I noticed it anymore. I have to think a lot harder on adulthood experiences, but I'll let Bryanna share.
Sure. So, as a trans woman who was assigned male at birth, I had a boyhood. I did not have a girlhood, but I do remember being a little boy, just having me having dark skin, it being seen as negative. I remember it being a thing when I was in middle school where I would get teased or comments would be made and I was insulted because I was dark skinned or like darky and blacky. I think I have a unique experience because I was such a feminine boy and also a dark skinned feminine boy, where people around me wanted me to toughen up. Especially being the only boy child, brought up in a single, raised by a single mother. And I often think, was I often think about, was I supposed to be tougher because my skin was darker and I couldn't show up in this feminine way. So it's just one of those things that I look back and I often wonder, like, is because of how I showed up. And I'm somebody, I only really know my mom's side of the family, and all of us are like chocolate and dark. And so I wonder if that was kind of the pathology that, particularly for the boys, if you're going to be dark and you're a boy, then you have to act this way, and anything else that we need to kind of correct that out of you or beat that out of you. So those were kind of my experience, the things that stick out to me, just the toughening me up. And then once getting to middle school, as a young boy, in Just or in the Dozens or whatever, the blackness of my skin, or just being black, that being a constant thing that I just couldn't escape. So I physically transitioned when I was 19. I'm 34 right now. I don't think I thought about when I transitioned. I don't think I thought about being a dark skinned woman when I transitioned. I just wanted to be a woman. I think as I've just gotten like more political education, I've been able to see like how this plays in my life. Um, I'm always thinking about my reality as a dark skinned Black trans woman in relation to safety.
Yeah.
Because something that I do notice, like when we do like, so every November is Trans Day of Remembrance, and that's just usually a day where the trans community honors trans people whose lives have been taken away from violence. And, after you go to a couple and you see the pictures, you do start to see like, hey, most of these girls that are being murdered by their intimate partners, a lot of them are dark skinned, a lot of them have hair like mine, a lot of them have wide noses. So like it, so I'm always thinking about, and it's somebody that primarily dates cis-het men, cis-het Black men, I'm always thinking about whether my my skin tone positions me to experience more violence or more harm, because that's what I see. um that's kind of the messaging I see from the harm that I see in the trans community, and not even only in the trans community, just attitudes about Black dark skinned women, period, by men. So I think for me, it's a thing of safety. And then on the other side, um, I'm always mindful when I'm engaging with men, when they can only say nice things like about how I look in relation to like a food or like something sweet, like some type of fetishy type of thing, and there's no room for me to be anything other than that. And when I try to unpack that or talk about that, it so easily goes from them thinking they're giving me this compliment to like violence because I'm not accepting how they are choosing to engage with me. So that's how, those are the things that I constantly think about, and those are the things that I'm constantly having to push, because I'm more than just chocolate. Like I'm an actual like complex person that I want people to have like a real experience with me. So I think that's how it shows up for me now.
Yeah, I have similar experience. I do appreciate you bringing up your boyhood and how colorism affected your boyhood, because a lot of times I think masculine people are removed from the conversations, as if colorism is something only Black women or Black femmes experience, as if it's not like something that affects people of all genders or people of not of gender. So I really appreciate you bringing that up. I think for me, my experience is the reverse of yours, Akua's. Like I didn't notice it in my childhood. I think also because I am on like the lighter end of dark skin, and I have family members who are darker than me. So in my home, that just did not exist. Like my mother's darker than me, I have siblings darker than me, so it just didn't live in my family. So I didn't have that. But it's not until like going out in the world and when desirability became a thing that I started to notice a difference. And I started to notice a difference of how I was treated by people who desired me, or even like I would say like being in high school and stuff is when I noticed too, like the way teachers treated me different from other classmates, as if I was like, oh, like everything I did was suspicious activity. You know, like I'm doing the same thing. That's how we passing the same notes. But I'm the problem. So that, like, it's in my, I guess, my teenhood, my adolescence, and my adulthood when I started noticing, like, people are treating me different because I am darker than the people around me, and stuff like that. That's when I started to notice it. I appreciate not having, lots of harmful memories from childhood, but in my adolescence and adulthood, like, I could pinpoint, like, I'm just like, it's just like, oh my God, like, to the point where I feel, this is the ableist term, but sometimes I feel like crazy, because it's like, I can't, how can I exist, right? How do I exist freely and happily when I see all this harm every which way? And then when I say it, people are like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? So that has been my kind of experience with colorism. I do want to ask, why do you think the conversation of colorism tends to stay at the superficial? Like, it tends to stay at desirability or beauty standards, or it tends to stay at, like, whether we're in movies or, like, entertainment, when we know that colorism is a systemic, harmful problem for dark-skinned people, but people always keep the conversation about, video girls, like, just on some basic level.
I think that it stays so superficial because then people have to do the work. If you realize that you are mistreating the dark-skinned people in your life, you have to hold yourself accountable and do the work, and they don't really want to. It's why, conversations about capitalism stay at 101. It's the same reason why conversations about racism stay out, because they don't want to do the work. They don't want to realize on the micro level how they're playing a part in this. If I keep it outside of me and talk about the video girls, I don't know them girls. If we keep it outside of ourselves and just talk about what we see in film and videos, we have no control over that. We can ask for those people to be accountable, but that has nothing to do with me as the individual, the person either doing the harm and or benefiting from the privilege. So they're not going to dig deeper, because that means changing and undoing harm to the people that we harm, acknowledging that, yes, my mother's dark skinned, but I harm her. Yes, my sister's dark skinned, but I just called her a monkey black bitch. Like, even as a joke, in the dozens, even as I was roasting her, I have to recognize that, and I have to work to change that, and they don't want to.
What do you think, Bryanna?
I also think we have to have the conversation. I guess this is kind of on a macro level, that people benefit from color. Like, people are able to, like, get a bag from being colorist. And I think the word you were looking for, like, instead of crazy, was gaslighting. Like, I think we all feel gaslit, but I think people want to treat it like it's a subjective single experience, and it's not the objective. Like, this is the likelihood of what your life could end up like if you are dark skinned across the board. And I think a lot of us, like Akua said, it's hard doing the work. Even me as a dark-skinned person, I constantly have to do the work to deprogram the messaging. And it's hard because we live in a world that is skewed to uplifting and valuing people with lighter skin, with European features or straight hair. And I think a lot of people they're not invested in doing the work because it's comfortable, which is okay. But I think people have to get comfortable with saying that and not gaslighting other people when we experience that you don't want to do the work to be anti-Black, and part of being anti-Black means really. And I also think, just like when we unlearn any ism, it's not like there's a one-time act. It's like a constant reciprocal. Like, this is like a lifetime journey that you have to go on to not be this way, especially in a world, in a society where people are going to get against you. And I just think that level of awareness and that level of how deeply it is ingrained, like in our culture and just how we move, I think people are very sensitive to that. People don't want to be aware with. On some level, I want to have sympathy, particularly for the folks that feel like they have to buy into it. Like when you think about the people that use the lightening cream, or like even taking it out of colorism, just like people that feel like they have to, wherever they fall in this beauty matrix, having grace for people that feel like they have to do what they have to do to get ahead in this world, in this system that's capitalist. Like having grace for those people, but still trying to, in the same breath, doing the work to just unearth the ugliness of it, and so we can just create alternatives, so we can treat each other better. This is a hard topic. This is a hard. It's hard. It's hard.
It is.
I also think, much like you said about your experience in adolescence and adulthood, Queen, is that it's always ping, 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 ping. We are people that don't want things in our face all the time, especially when it's hard. So if it's ping, 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 no, they are wary. They don't want to. They don't want to.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. I also think that it's sad to say, but I think we have to be told when something is wrong. So like you need like a precedent, like a legal precedent that says don't treat dark-skinned people this way, right? And there's nothing like that, you know what I'm saying? So it stays something that's elusive and arbitrary. It's clear, don't be racist, right? Now, if you choose to be, you know, whatever, but it's not clear that don't be a colorist. It's not very clear not to participate in this system. And if you do participate in it, you are doing something bad. I don't think it's clear enough in that way. So it stays something that people can, it's kind of an option, you know, like maybe I will try to dismantle colorism, but I don't really have to, because is it really real? Does it actually exist? You know, that's kind of how I see it, and kind of how I see why people kind of just pick and choose when it is a big deal. Like the example I'm going to use is that whole situation with that Chef Wei, and how the old colorist tweets came up, and I was really disgusted by how surprised people were. Do you know how many dark-skinned women like talk about these experiences? And like, did you think that they were lying all this time? Like, you know what I mean? Like, did you think that we did not experience, what did you think we were talking about all of this time? And then you see these tweets resurface and it's like, oh my God, I cannot. It really upset me.
I want to add to that, in that colorism isn't a people of color or Black people thing, but it's so insidious that we didn't realize that it's a system that we participate in to benefit from, you know. So, you know, colorism is a thing for Chinese folks and Indian folks and Hispanic and Afro-Latino folks, and all around the world there's colorism. But I think people, much like you said, people are quick to look at racism because that's easier to digest. We've already, like you said, we've already established that as bad. That has legal precedence. That we know that's bad. It's easy to be like, okay, we know that that's bad. And I think people lump or kind of overlook or dismiss colorism because it's like, well, you Black anyway, so they don't like you regardless. And I'm like, but there's also, I'm also a certain type of Black. I look a certain Black, and that means something different. And, you know, they don't see the spectrum. They just see the Black and white.
Definitely. It's because of that, just seeing the Black and white and not seeing a nuance in that, and not seeing that a lot of times when we look at these numbers and statistics about who is poor, who is educated, who gets the healthcare, who is, you know, whatever, when we talk about Black people in those numbers also reflect dark-skinned people, right? Because dark-skinned people are as far as shade is concerned, the majority of what Blackness looks like, right? It's hard to get people to understand the conflation of that. Like there's a Venn diagram, but because we are darker people, we are more likely to be in prison. We are more likely to do longer time. There's numbers that say that, but I think that a lot of times those numbers, we use them to just be like Black people, when it's like, that's actually dark-skinned Black people.
Yes. Like we say that Black is not a monolith, but that also includes how we look. And I think a lot of times we know that Black people come in different shades, but when we think Black, we think of dark-skinned people without realizing it.
Yes.
And then, so we can know that in the same breath, not know it or not acknowledge it or not realize it.
And I think that it's interesting that you said that there's really not some type of legal mechanism to, at least in a civil sense, go after people specifically for the harm of colorism. Or I hope that this Chef's Way situation, and I'm pretty sure more situations to follow, will get us closer to, and I would love to see this done on the local level. Like the only thing with the federal level, I don't think it's enough Black folks to really get in there and write that legislation. And I just don't feel like white folks who are not impacted by colorism like should be the one, because they just don't understand the nuances. So I would really love to see this this crafted at a local, because the reality is that if and when we get to a day where this law is a thing, it's going to be an interracial type of thing where we're going to be typically be holding other Black people liable for the colorism that they enact against other people. I think what we're seeing with these Crown Acts in different states that have been passed in regards to the law, this is just one of the things where the law takes so long to catch up to the evolution that is happening like in our culture, but it's going to have to move forward because so many people, particularly dark-skinned Black women, are facing discrimination because of how they look, because of how they show up in the world. And the lack of nuance in the law, it fails people who exist at multiple intersections so many times, because you don't have the people that are impacted by it writing the laws. You don't have judges who represent these groups that will be able to, from lived experience, will be able to know how this thing could happen and how the law needs to. So it's again, this is a complex issue, but this is why we need people with like actual lived experience legislating these laws, enforcing these laws, interpreting these laws, and ultimately bringing colorism from this cultural conversation to this thing that's on Black and white paper. This is what it is. This is what it's about. This is what we need to do to counteract the harms of colorism.
True. I want to kind of expand that because there is a lot of interracial colorism, but I do want to add that white people do participate in colorism. Like they will hire the light-skinned Black people. They will make sure that their work poster looks still homogeneous and everyone is still kind of very, very similar. That's why there are a lot of light-skinned Black people in certain rooms and in certain spaces and allowed to, the first Black president, a lighter skinned Black person, that privilege does afford them things, and white people do participate and pick the certain kind of Black person to be the person next to them because they feel a little more comfortable, so they do know what they're doing as far as infiltrating colorism. But then when it is brought to their attention, kind of like when it came to the Chef Way situation, and I believe his boss was a white woman and didn't quite understand, or it seems as though she
probably didn't care.
Yeah, that's what I think. I think she just didn't care, that's, who knows what them niggas is doing over there. You know what I'm saying? Like she didn't care, right? But they would pretend that they don't, what colorism, what? Oh, but they're active participants in it too. So I wanted to make sure that I pointed out, it's not just something that, we definitely didn't.
I don't see color, and I damn for sure don't see the light skin color.
Exactly. Because they do it. I think about, like, I have light-skinned friends who have particular jobs, and all of their Black coworkers are light-skinned too. That's not by accident, especially considering light-skinned people are a minority amongst the shades of Blackness, you know? So they know what colorism is and they know what they be doing. But then when you bring it to their face, it's like, huh, what? But she's Black. So I want to move on to kind of like, why do you think a lot of colorism conversations get stuck in like a cis het perspective? So it's always about whether men prefer women who are dark skinned. Like, it just stays in this very basic thing. And as we've talked about, we have there's many ways that colorism exists and why it exists. Why do you think it stays so straight also?
I think that just goes back to who is curating these conversations, just the different voices, and also, which I hope in this year we can just stop, like, just because somebody who is Black is also part of the LGBT community, that does not like erase or wipe away the fact that they will have to experience racism, and that we are impacted by all of that. So I think now and that's the beauty of social media and us just having exposure to all of these communities. Now that people are aware that we exist, we have to start holding people accountable who are curating these conversations. Where are these voices? And if they're not, like, calling it out. Like, there's a whole bunch of like Black-led platforms that I watch and I support. And when you're just having conversations and you're leaving out certain voices, I'm going to say something because I'm Black too, and I feel like all experiences need to be included so that we're just not continuously talking in circles and not kind of expanding our views or just expanding our exposures. And I think it's a missed opportunity to kind of coalition build just across different identities and really bond over our shared experiences and things that make us unique, and ultimately things that make us stronger, just to show that other people other than cishet people are invested in the fight to dismantle colorism.
I know for myself, when I agree, that is why we don't hear these conversations, because people don't pull them into the conversation. But I wanted to talk about how in queer spaces, how colorism exists. So I know, like, just for just very simple basic stuff, but I've been to parties, like queer women parties, and like I see who gets talked to. Like, it's always the tall light-skinned girls. It's never the dark-skinned girls. I remember I was out with my homegirl. She is dark-skinned, darker than me, just for reference, and fat, whatever. And like, no, like, you would think that like she was standing around with a hatchet. Like, it was just like, I'm dead serious. It was just like, good look, beautiful woman. But it was just like, wow, you know, it's so I want to bring that up because we don't usually talk about how in queerness that we are also perpetuating colorism, especially when it comes to who we're attracted to. I know that there are a lot of queer men who say the same. We're outside of the queer men who would only date white men, but then it's the queer men who will only date the light-skinned, you know, men and stuff like that. Or like, I remember there was a period of time where I was just so annoyed that like every lesbian just was posting Kalani in their Instagram stories, and it was getting on my nerves. I'm like, there's so many, there's mad beautiful Black queer artists, and it's just like Kalani, and you know exactly why that is and why they're doing that, but people don't talk about it in that way because it's just like, oh, queerness, queer love. You're just happy that there's just some queer representation or like queer whatever happening, that you don't quite point out like, this is some colorist fuck shit. And if it was like a straight situation, you might notice it more.
So I think for me, how I've seen it, particularly within in the trans communities that I'm a part of, not so much of desirability, not saying that it doesn't exist, The thing that comes front of mind to me, so I used to participate in the ballroom scene for a brief period of time, and I used to walk beauty categories, and I just knew that me being heavier, dark skinned, that I was not favored, and that worked against me. I also had a leadership position, and because I wasn't like beautiful or the trophy mother, that kind of colors the experience that you're going to have in the ballroom scene, where for the most part, even though there are a lot of great things that come out of the ballroom scene, it originated from assimilating to what the mainstream standard was. And the ballroom took a lot of, in addition for it to being a safe place, it's taken, and it still has a lot of those negative qualities that shut out people like me from being valued, from being represented, also being in a space that's male dominated, being a trans woman that speaks up and leads, and that's very shunned, and that's very looked down on. And when you are a woman and you're a leader, and you're going to have to go back and forth with gay men who are still men at the end of the day, that can be very like misogynistic or trans misogynistic, and is really designed to, if you're not this beautiful, and then for the girls that are dark skinned, you can only be dark skinned and appear a certain type of way. You have to have the certain body shape, or the small nose, or the straight hair. So my time in ballroom was short, but that was like a lot of the reason that kind of colored my experience. And then I think about being a trans woman, like in activism in professional spaces, and trying to navigate. And because I'm dark skinned, I'm not, exotic, I can't sit at these different tables. Kind of early in my career, it was kind of hard for somebody to envision somebody like me, that looked like me, that show up like me in leadership, because and I know a piece of it is because of my transness, but another part is because, again, I'm not this beauty queen. I'm coming in being trans my way, and it really, I literally had to leave the nonprofit industrial complex and really create opportunities for myself, to set myself apart, because I knew nobody was going to roll the red carpet out for me, because I didn't fit the standard. I knew how I showed up. And even back in my early transition, even though I was dark skinned, I was way more hyper feminine. Like with I had longer hair, I was wearing tracks and all of that. But even still, me just being dark skinned, and just me having the spirit of a leader, and just knowing who I was, that got me shut out of a lot of places, and it just made my role a little bit harder. And then I also had some time doing sex work as a trans woman, and it's hard being dark skinned, being heavy, trying to command money, and directly competing with the exotic trans girls and the light skinned trans. It's hard. It's hard. Not saying you can't overcome and make it through, but you will deal with people that are just going to let you know off the bat that you shouldn't value yourself because you show up this way. And there's somebody else that looks better. And then also, being darker is not associated with being feminine and passable.
Yes.
That's like being dark and being heavyset and being like, that's the worst thing that you can be. It's all about being fairer skin and softer and so it's when I thought that my skin tone and everything I represented would play a role of me transitioning and living in my truth as a woman, it really kind of shaped the walk that I would have just through how I've had to create opportunities for myself and be self-enterprising, because the normal pathways to success, because I didn't fit the stereotype of beauty or woman. Like I had to do that for myself.
Thank you for sharing all that, Bryanna. I agree. You know, we don't talk about colorism in the queer community because we don't talk about colorism. You know, it's kind of the ingrained standard that light skin is desirable and beautiful, and that's what you go for. So even when we get into the margins, that standard is still there and the work is still done to get into the nuance and get into the grays of that. So, you know, we're going to see in the queer community people nothing but the light skinned lesbians with the braids getting play.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
or if someone comes up to you, hey, chocolate mama, like it's always chocolate. It's always it's always
Yes.
chocolate. It's the standard. It's, you know, even when you're in the margins, you're still trying to assimilate or pull to the mainstream, you know, and that is Eurocentric features, that is lighter skin, that is straighter hair.
Yeah. Yeah. It's frustrating when you think you find community who understands layers of marginalization, and then you get to something like colorism and they're like, what? Huh?
I think it's because they see it as the layers, they see the layers as like a lasagna. You can kind of tell where they are, they're big enough to see. And I'm like, the layers are really more like a tiramisu or like a 12 layer, like they are tiny. Okay, the layers are not these chunky, all right, this is where it divides. No, it even within those layers we got to go deeper. There are more layers.
Yes, definitely. So I do want to move on to talk about light-skinned people.
Some of my best friends is light skin. What do you mean?
So, you know, but I cannot have a conversation about colorism and not talk about light-skinned people and not talk about the harm and some of the ignorance with their privilege. So yeah, like how do you deal with light-skinned people? How do you deal with folk that you're in community with? And when I'm talking about light-skinned people, I'm talking about light-skinned Black people. How do you deal with being in community with people who understands the intersections of race and gender and so on and so forth, trans identity? They understand all of these isms, but for some reason when it gets to colorism, they just don't get it. Like how, you know, because I know we are all in community with people who understand and do this work to dismantle systems. But even within our communities, we got the homegirl who just doesn't quite
see it.
Yes. How do you exist with that? How do you live with that?
For me, it's pointing it out when I can see it too. I think that a lot of times, like for me in my adulthood, a lot of times it's not as clear as it was. So I have to recognize and be like, wait, hold the fuck up. Wait a minute. And then be able to be like, you hold up, you see this. But it is a lot of calling people in and kind of, you know, really being like, hey, that was colorist, that, you know, or this was my experience in that, and this is how I feel you can advocate for me in this way. A lot of times they get it. I don't know if I had too many experiences with people who weren't that open to see how they play.
That's good. I'm happy for you, Akua.
I think, well, I'm very particular about the people that I curate in my personal life and the people that I give time to. I'm very fortunate for the light-skinned Black people that are in my life. They are fully aware and they're actively doing the work, and just conversations about colorism are something that we can have without them feeling the need to center themselves. For people that I come across, light-skinned folks that I come across that are not there yet, I just encourage them, or the conversation that I have is, while acknowledging that you might have been made fun of because you were made fun of because you are light-skinned, but challenging them to zoom out, like, you know, there's a bigger picture going on. You know, we're not saying that what you experienced wasn't real, but again, it's about shifting from people thinking this is a subjective thing that one white, dark-skinned Black person going to shifting that from subjective to objective, like this objectively because of the structures that are set up. These, and while you were being bullied because you are light-skinned, you know, all around the country or all around your state, people with dark skin, you know, will have this experience, and just kind of creating a space for not feeling like I have to educate or save everybody, but just leaving the information on the table. And when you're ready to zoom out to kind of see the big picture, you can do that. But I think in so many aspects of my life, I'm just so tired. Like, I have to take the time to, again, do the work so that I'm unlearning the colorism for myself. So that because every day is a constant deprogramming. Like, I intentionally had to like put images of dark-skinned fat women like on my phone, my shower curtain. Like, it's a daily practice to visually see representations of me, so that I'm not constantly beating myself up because my body doesn't look like this, or I'm not losing weight fast enough, or I'm not. So if it's a constant thing for me, then it has to be a constant thing for you. But all we can do is just put the information out there. I hope that these conversations will inspire like more research to continue to be produced about the insidious impacts of colorism and just how objective it is in so many areas. One thing I think about is, even though I'm not assigned female at birth and I identify as a woman but not female, the maternal mortality rate, and I think about particularly dark-skinned women not being believed by doctors when they say that they are in pain. Like,
Serena Williams is a dark-skinned Black woman.
Right. These are the things, and I know that hasn't been studied yet. I know we're having conversations and films are being made about it, but I just think about so much how being dark-skinned is just connected to so many areas of life, where you being dark-skinned, you being heavy, you being shapely means that you won't be valued and you won't be protected, and you'll just be open to the elements. And again, this is something that every dark-skinned woman and femme will experience, whether you're aware of it or not. So I just hope that this turns into more research, which will turn into more policy initiatives, which will turn into more laws. So that's kind of where I am with it, with light skin folks. It's like, yeah, your feelings are valid, but like there's a bigger piece of the pie, and you either gonna open your eyes, or you just gonna be circular in your pain. That's none of my business.
Yeah, I'm very firm on like, I generally don't talk to light-skinned people about colorism because I just can't. But I am in community with light-skinned people, obviously. And usually when I am, and I'm talking particularly women, usually if I have friends who are light-skinned people, I do like to see their friends. Like, I'm not going to be friends with a light-skinned person who has not no community with other dark-skinned people. Like, I'm not going to do that. Like, I'm not, right? Because it says a lot. If you are intentionally making sure that your friends group is all light-skinned people, and that takes a lot of intention, because like I said, the numbers show that most Black people are darker skinned. There's already something, whatever. So I do look at things like that, or I do look like if it's a partner, either male or female, who they're in community with, what their people look like, stuff like that. So I usually start there, and then, kind of just see if they just kind of just get it on a baseline, and then I could determine, okay, I could be in community with this person. But I am very protective of my peace in that way. So in general, I just don't. I'm like, that's my personality though. Like, I don't go hard to be cool with white people. And I don't. That's just not my thing, right? Y'all know me. So that's just. So for me, that's been helpful for me, and that's been helpful for my peace. The thing that I most often want light-skinned people to understand is that pointing out colorism is not. I don't know. It's almost as if sometimes they take it as you are calling them like a slave master. You know what I mean? Or like you are saying, you know, and that's not what it is. We're just calling out a system that you benefit from. And for me, a lot of harm and a lot of what hurts my feelings from light-skinned people is a lot of them do not want to give up that privilege. They love the benefits of colorism and they will not admit it. They will rather just act like it's elusive or it's not my fault or, oh my, you know, they'll do all of that stuff, but they will not admit that they enjoy the benefits of colorism, because what that does is make you the same as me. And they will not admit that. So for me, and two light-skinned people being together and admit that you benefit from colorism and you like those benefits, or you are going to give up those benefits, however they happen for you, you're not doing anything for me. Even talking about colorism is not doing anything for me. Like it's not doing anything. Like you literally
if you're somebody that believes reverse racism exists, then that lets me know that we can't be in that. Like that's just the litmus test. If you running around talk about reverse colorism and all of that, then that's that's usually where I opt out. It's just like
But yeah, for me, I just really would appreciate, because I am in community, you are a Black person, I'm in community with you. I would like for them to acknowledge the privilege and how they benefit from it and also how they perpetuate it, you know? I think that people are not honest about it. They just like to tack it on to like, well, that's white supremacy. And what can I do about white supremacy? Like you can do something about harming dark-skinned people that you are in community with. You can do something about that. And you are choosing not to. And I don't think they understand that that is a choice. You are choosing not to. There are ways intercommunally that we could make sure these things don't happen. There's a reason why most of our civil rights leaders are light-skinned. There's a reason why most of the academics are light-skinned. There's a reason why a lot of who represents Black people are light-skinned people, when, like I've been saying this whole conversation, light-skinned people are the minority of Blackness.
Queen, let me ask you this. How do you feel about, what is your conversation for dark-skinned people that uphold colorism?
My conversation for dark-skinned people that uphold colorism is to do that in the work. To do that in the work. There's layers of anti-Blackness and also anti-dark-skinnedness. I don't know if that's a term that you are battling, and you need to do the work to do away with that. But it is not the job of dark-skinned people to dismantle the system of colorism. We would never ask Black people to dismantle the system of white supremacy. So I know that's not what you was alluding to at all, but I just want to make sure that we say that it is not the job of dark-skinned Black people, the oppressed people in the colorism situation, to dismantle this system. But I do challenge dark-skinned people to challenge your ideas about being dark, challenge your ideas about beauty, challenge your ideas about who is worthy, because that's a lot of what colorism dictates, is who is worthy of care or who is worthy of harm. It takes a lot of work. There are times where I'll look back and I'm like, wow, that was wow. And I won't even know, right? So as Akua said in the beginning of the conversation, it is insidious, but like when you meet it, you have to like look at it head on. I think a lot of times
call it out. You gotta shine the light on it.
You gotta accept it for what it is. Like I'm sure that I have participated in colorism. We all have. We have been indoctrinated in this system that said it's okay to harm dark-skinned people, you know? And I think if we're honest about our roles in it, then we could further be honest about ways in which we can, you know, dismantle that. Because honestly, I don't feel that liberation can happen if, you know, I don't want a Black liberation where there's still light-skinned people at the forefront. That's not my liberation.
And also, you can give me a compliment about my skin without comparing it to something edible. Like my skin can be nice just because it's nice. It doesn't have to be nice because I look like chocolate or like
mocha.
Come on, y'all. Right? Come on, y'all. Come on.
Right? It's so basic. Be creative.
Please, like. And I actually take a lot of time to invest money to take care of my skin. So like you could say that it looks nice because it does look nice. I don't know.
But it's not just nice because I'm dark skinned. Like,
right.
All right, so I want to have my one last question, and it's mostly for us to leave something for all the viewers. So what are the things that you have done to, I guess, dismantle colorism for yourself and create the world that you want, to create the world where you can exist freely, create the world where you can take up space, do all of the things that they say a dark-skinned person isn't supposed to be able to do? Like, what are the things you do to remind you that, like, and affirm that, you know, you the shit?
I mean, Bryanna alluded to it. It started with me surrounding myself with dark-skinned people. And that was in my social media, that was in my books, that was in my movies. Because once you change your view, you then start asking some of these questions. You start to notice that outside of your bubble, that, you know, what you're creating for yourself isn't the larger picture, if you didn't get that already. I affirm my beauty as a Black, you know, dark-skinned woman, and I am beautiful, not just because my skin is chocolate. Like, I'm just bad. That's it. I don't need to be light-skinned. I don't need to be thinner. I'm a bad bitch. Like, this is it. This is the view of a bad bitch. Just get to it. I affirm that in my child, who's a dark-skinned Black boy that looks literally just like me.
He does.
Just whole face. I don't know. I don't want to say I've surrounded myself. I try to, you know, curate my space with people who understand it, who are able to call out their own isms. I am actually friends with a lot of dark-skinned people now that I think about it. So that, I think that also helps in kind of seeing that representation, like in my friend group, in my family.
I'll say the same, like for me, like images are just so powerful.
Yeah.
Like I had images of real people as screensavers, drawings of people. Like I constantly need that reminder, because I feel like so much of just general American imagery is not realistic, and it kind of warps what we think beauty is. And I'm very intentional about the images that I curate. I'm going in the sun. Like, I'm going in the sun. I'm playing in the sun. I'm getting dark. Like, I'm just living my life. And
with our SPF though, you know, because we do get skin cancer. So with
I'm going.
And we get sunburned. And we get
black. I have my Black girl sunscreen product. Like, it's not a game. I'm just allowing. I'm just living my life and allowing myself to connect to people that see me. And particularly like for romance or anything, if you're somebody that is colorist, you don't need to be by me. Like, thank you for eliminating yourself. You don't need to be by me. That, like, I want somebody that is able to, like, just see my beauty in my natural and rawest form. And also feeling comfortable to challenge colorism in spaces where I have power. Like you said, as somebody that has the power to hire people and bring people on, the type of Black, especially like trans people, when you think about a lot of these like LGBT cases, typically the plaintiffs are white, or, you know, if they are of color, they're ambiguous. I'm like, no, we need to go to the deepest of the South. We need to find, like, because stuff like that really matters. And using the privilege that I do have to always push back, or just even get people to question, just pushing back, like, why does it have to be this way? Why? Just using the little bit of privilege that I got, because I don't have that much, to kind of just feel empowered and push back. And I think when we interrupt and we question, I think it has more impact than we think, like on a personal level. So just empowering myself to push back when I see colorism, and feeling confident to check people. In my family, on my mom's side, I come from a very dark family. I tend to be on the lighter side, and I'm so glad that my mom, dark-skinned woman, always always did stuff to show pride in the darkness of her skin. You know, I have that, so I feel fortunate that, despite everything that I just had great representations of just how to, despite all of the BS, just how to show up in the world as like a beautiful, authentic, dark-skinned woman. Just, represent the best way that I know how. So
Yeah.
Yes. And I love that you say that, as a person with power to hire, I'm interviewing Black, dark-skinned women. My favorite thing, and I love telling all little Black children that they're beautiful, but little Black girls with, 4C textured hair, I'm like, I like your hair. I love your skin.
Mhm.
Like any chance I get, sometimes I'll be lying, but I'm gonna say it.
right,
Because
you're
they
pretty
need to hear it.
Yes.
right, and pretty period, not
And
Yeah.
that's
pretty
it.
dark skin, just
Yeah.
pretty. You're
You're
pretty.
so beautiful. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are all things that I have in practice. Like I'm very into, we've been brainwashed into the system. So I'm very into like brainwashing myself to think the
Otherwise.
opposite,
Yeah.
So yes. And I didn't realize I didn't realize this is what my parents were doing. So they already were kind of like that. So every, images in the house and stuff was dark skin and things like that. I didn't know that what was happening. And then that just transpired into my adulthood. I remember being a kid, like loving Patra. And then I remember my friends like, why you like Patra? And I knew it was because she was dark skinned, but I didn't, as an adult, I knew it was because she was dark skinned and sexy, right? Because how many dark skinned, sexy people were I seeing on my TV winding up and, doing all the things, the men wanting to be all over, you remember Patra. So I loved Patra and I didn't realize it till I was an adult that it was like, that's why I loved her, because I saw a dark-skinned woman that everyone like
that was desired
and
owned it and
owned it, commanded the space, took up space, rule girl, like just existed in ways that, many of us are told not to exist. And I didn't know as a kid. Also, I was attracted to her, she bad, but I didn't know, but as an adult, I'm like, oh, okay, that's what I was doing. I was like, looking for myself somewhere and latching onto that. And that's just what I do as an adult. Like on my social media, I will follow someone just because they dark skin. I don't even know what you're doing.
I gotta vet what you're doing because just because you're dark, I'm not rooting for you just because you're dark skinned.
I am gonna vet what you're doing. I'm gonna vet because sometimes I'm like, wait, why am I unfollow? Because it's like whatever.
But you could be dark skinned and weaving baskets. I'm here to buy one. Like just because
exactly.
I don't need this basket, but here we are.
Here we are. Yeah. So just doing those things, just doing the things to reprogram my mind. Also looking at dark skinned women who don't have the features that are closely related to the beauty standard set by Europeans, or looking at dark-skinned women from different countries, because I think that I think my experience is probably very different because I'm Black American. Like it probably would be different if I was Caribbean or from the continent, what people said to me and how people treated me because of xenophobia on top of being a darker skinned person, So I just try to diversify, even when it comes to darkness, diversify what I am looking at, because it's important, because we could get in a phase where we just think people who look like, I don't know, I can't think of anyone right now, but who is dark skinned, but they're still slim. They still have a thinner nose.
Gabrielle Union.
Yeah, Gabrielle Union. Yes. Dark skinned women like that. And they think, oh, we did it. No. You didn't. Don't let me go further when it comes to like trans dark skinned women, you don't see them either in the media space. They are lighter with the exception of, Angelica Ross, but everyone else that I can think of, T.S. Madison, but she's not as mainstream as like an Angelica Ross, but everyone else, they're not particularly dark skinned.
It's given very exotical.
Yes.
What is she? Maybe she made something.
Maybe she Maybelline. Like maybe.
Okay, so I guess we can close this here. I do want to say thank you for having this conversation with me. I will have their information if you want to follow them on social media in the description box below. Thanks for watching this video. And if you have experience or questions that make sense about colorism, you can also leave them in the description box. If you are a hurt light skin, I'm not going to reply. I'm not going to say anything. If you get ridiculous, you will be blocked. Thank you for the patrons. Thank you for your monetary support that you really keep Mixed Vixen going. And as always, you are a bad bitch. You are enough. Stay fly. And I will see you in the next video.